Hello everyone, thank you for joining me here today. It's a really peaceful, quiet morning here at home. It's perfect conditions really to talk about what I'm about to talk about. So I am ready to talk about my story, my background, my experiences and everything that's culminated in who I am today. As a person, as a dad, as a friend, everything that's made me who I am today. First and foremost, I need to answer the question why. Why am I doing this video? Why am I telling my story? And there's three reasons really. The first reason is to create an inspirational message to anybody that works with children in care, teachers, parents, foster carers. The second reason is to inspire children themselves that might look at this video and relate themselves and their situations to what I went through. And the third reason is to give little Stephen a voice. So I believe in inner child therapy. I believe in everybody has their inner child, and for me, little Stephen didn't really have a voice growing up, so this is an opportunity for little me to talk about his experiences. So before we get into the main part of the story, what I'd like to do is give you a bit of an understanding through some self-interviewed questions where it's almost like me interviewing myself as a child in a bit of a weird way, but we'll see how it goes. There's multiple ways that I could explain it, but the easiest and simplest term that I used is a chaotic adventure. Chaos meaning there was a lot of turmoil, there was a lot of adversity, there was a lot of rejection, there was a lot of moves, realigning my attachment. I had a disorganised attachment style, so I wasn't able to attach to my caregivers, and obviously the more moves that you have, the more moves a child has, the further the damage is increased, because then they have to realign their attachment with their caregivers. So that was definitely something that created chaos in my life. The adventure part was, as a child, there was a sort of excitement to moving around a lot. I was moving into what was meant to be my forever family, and I suppose if everything went well, they would have adopted me. I went to live with them. First 3 months were amazing. You know, we went on holidays, bought me a bike, started a new school, had brothers and sisters. It was what was set up as the dream situation for me really, after having 9 years without a solid family. But on reflection, what happened is I'd built a good relationship with my foster dad and my brothers and sisters, but my foster mom, there was some transference going on. So there's transference from me. So transference basically means when you project your emotions of a particular event onto somebody else. And because my emotional state towards my mother, or the mother figure, was very negative, I transferred that onto my foster mom. So I wasn't able to form a relationship with her, so naturally it became toxic, and she picked up on that and became quite abusive really. There was things like bath time, she would hold my head under the bath, purposely saying that I'm not washing properly. She would force me to hug her when I didn't want to hug her, so she'd hold me tight and my arms would just by my side, because I never had no emotional attachment to her. School mornings, you know, when dropping the sisters off to school, she would purposely buy them a bottle of the Panda Pops and the Chomp. She'd purposely buy them things and she wouldn't buy me none, and when I'd asked where's mine, she would say that I'd been naughty. And in the final months of me being in the placement, I'd have to come home from school and go straight to bed, and then I'd wonder why I couldn't come out to play, and she'd just say that I'd been naughty. And then the physical abuse started, so she'd smack me with a hanger, or she'd tell me to go and get a spoon so she could hit me with it. So it became very volatile and very abusive. You know, when I used to wee the bed, she would come in and she'd ridicule me for it, saying that I'm disgusting, and because I became fearful of her reaction, I used to hide the sheets. So if I'd wet the bed, I'd hide the sheets, and then obviously the room would start to smell, and then she'd find the sheets and then she'd hit me again for it. So it was a very toxic relationship that we had. I remember when Free Willy the movie came out, the movie with the whale, so that came out in like 1993, and the whole family were going to see it. and I had to stay in the house by myself. And my foster sister at the time was saying, well, how come Stephen's not coming? And again, it was because Stephen's naughty. Stephen doesn't deserve to come on family outings. So immediately I was starting to become ostracised from the family. And yeah, I spent most of my time in my room, in my bed, for months. Yeah, so it wasn't very nice at all for me. And the way that ended was my social worker came over for a routine visit, and she noticed that there were bruises on my arms, fingerprint bruises from where the pressure of her holding my arms and sort of hitting me, I suppose. And what happened was she asked where I'd got the bruises from, and because I was scared, I think I'd shrugged my shoulders or something. But I had a distinct feeling that people were listening into the conversation to me and my social worker. We were in the lounge, so I said to my social worker, watch this, I went over to the lounge door, tiptoed over there, and I pulled the door open really fast. And my foster mum and two sisters, they kind of fell through, and I think my social worker knew at that point something wasn't quite right, because they were basically listening in to hear what I was saying to my social worker. So she put two and two together, the bruises, them listening in, obviously something not feeling right, and I was moved out, emergency moved into my first children's home, which was Sutton Road Children's Home, where I went to live with 13, 14 of the children, and I was there for about a year. So yeah, that was my lowest point. That was my most abusive placement. Obviously, when you hear about other stories of children in care, there's far more severe stories out there than obviously what I'd gone through, but it was severe enough for me to have gone through that experience. So Dave, he used to kind of look after me in the children's home. He was an inspirational figure for me in the children's home, but when we met back up later on in life, he became a dominant, inspirational figure. Somebody that I still to this day can't put a name on. He's a dad, he's a brother, he's a best friend, he's my mentor, he's everything to me. He's helped me out in ways that I'll never be able to repay him for, ways that go beyond money. The time, the things that he's dropped to come and help me, it's just pure love that I have with Dave, and he's an angel. He's basically God's version of an angel that was sent to me in very hard times. And then there's Lorna, the mother of my children. So before I met Lorna, my interpretation of girls was very derogatory. It was very negative, because I used to just associate myself with people that had a derogatory view of females, so I picked that up quite quickly. So when I'd met Lorna, I still had that way of thinking that, you know, girls are only for one thing, you know, what do you know, very, very derogatory. But there was just something about Lorna in the beginning that she persevered, and she must have seen something in me. And she, as she says, she fell in love with me. And in the beginning of our relationship, I wasn't a nice person. I was very derogatory towards her, and things became sour. But she persevered and persevered, and I think she just broke through that ice, and she just melted it. And I became very close to Lorna in that respect. And then I think she knew that I'd had a lot of attachment disorders along the way, and my viewpoint of women was derogatory, but she became loyal in that respect, and she became the mother of my children. When I found out I was going to be a dad, I was upset, I was angry, I was confused. All I wanted to do was run. So I jumped in my car and I went to see my friend Dave and told him, and I said, my life is over. I'm 24 years of age, I don't want kids yet, and she's pregnant and she's keeping it. So I said, maybe I'm going to have to finish with her, maybe we're going to have to end the relationship, I just don't want to be a dad. Fast forward months, and obviously Lorna's belly's getting bigger at this point, and something just switched in me, and I think it was that little Stephen that came up, and it said, you need to be the person that you never had. You need to be the dad that you never had. You need to give that back to this boy. So when Malachi was born, another switch went, and again the ice was melting. think that's probably the only way that I can describe it really. The ice was melting. So all three of my children, they look totally different to each other, and I love that. I love the diversity in them, because people will ask, are they all for the same mom? And I'm like, yeah. Is that necessary for you to ask? But yeah, they are. And they're all beautiful in their own way. And I don't know where Alyssa came from. She just came, but again, she melted a bit more ice. Until this day, I still don't know what that loving affection is, that deep affection that I have for her. Is she the youngest? Is it because she's the girl? Or is it just because she's Alyssa? I'm not too sure. What advice and support would I give to a child in care that's facing difficult times? I would say find your expression, find your creativity, because there's something that you can attach to that isn't negative. So your caregivers might be negative, your friends might be negative, your teachers might be negative. There's a lot of things happening around you that are negative. People keep putting you down. People keep saying things. People keep saying things that are not very nice, doing things that aren't very nice. The future looks bleak for you. You might be having suicidal thoughts. You might be in a place where you don't want to carry on. What I would say is find your creativity. And what I mean by that is find that thing that becomes natural to you, that is effortless. If it's drawing, draw. If it's dancing, dance. If it's writing, write. If it's singing, sing. If it's nature, get into some sort of nature. There's something that you can do to transport your mind to that other place. Because people can only affect so much, and your mind, you can take your mind wherever you want to take it. How did you get to where you are today? Like, why are you where you are? The universe works in mysterious ways, and it's a complex thing to get your head around. But I mean, look, I'm sitting now on a beautiful morning at home with my children and my family. That's a beautiful thing, considering the domino pieces that were set in motion when I was a child. I mean, most people would argue that I shouldn't have even been born, because my dad and my mum's sister were married. They had children. And check that paradox out. Check that paradox out. If my dad hadn't attempted to murder my mum's sister, he wouldn't have gone to prison. If he hadn't have gone to prison, he wouldn't have met my mum. And if he wouldn't have met my mum, he wouldn't have had me. And if he never had me, I wouldn't have gone through the system, multiple avenues. And then all of a sudden, I meet Laura, and we have 3 amazing children. Life is complex but beautiful at the same time. It's beautiful at the same time. So now I try not to cloud my head with too much of the what ifs and the regrets and all of that. You know, people say, oh, I have no regrets, I have no regrets. I don't have any regrets, I really don't. You couldn't have said that to me as a child growing up. You couldn't have said that to me leaving school. I mean, here's a guy that hated school, didn't want to go, and when I was there, I didn't do my work, I didn't concentrate, I was in detentions, I was getting exclusions, it just wasn't for me. The system's dressed up that, you know, you must do well at school, you have to do well at school. If you don't do well at school, your life is over. You don't get the GCSEs, you don't get the college placement, you don't get the university placement, and then all of a sudden your life is over, and who's going to want somebody that hasn't got a job? And although some of that may be true, so much of that isn't true, because I'm an example of that. I mean, nobody would want me to, you know, you wouldn't want me to come into your school and preach that message, would you? Oh no, Stephen, don't tell the children that. Don't tell the children that, you know, you can still have an amazing life without being successful at school. Don't tell them that part, because then they might not do well in school. So, but that's the reality of it, isn't it not? Is that not the reality? I mean, am I living a lie? Did I do well in school? No. Did I want to go to school? No. Did I develop great relationships with my teachers? No. Did I leave with good GCSEs? No. Did I become successful? Yes. But would that be a message you want me to bring into your school? Probably not. Don't tell them the truth, Stephen. Don't tell them the truth. You're an anomaly. You're a freak of nature. Who could go through such a system and come out with your mindset? You know, everybody that I meet, they often say to me, when I tell them a bit about my story, they say, oh wow, I would never even have thought that. I would never have thought that you'd been through those experiences in the care system, you've come out. And I think to myself, well, are you now attaching the idea of somebody going through adversity that they would have to come out in some sort of negative light? Can a rose not have thorns and still be beautiful? Can it not thunder and rain and still be magnificent? People think too much. So now I am going to show you the creative part of my story, now that I've been through some of my self-interviewed questions, and it's a bit weird, but I don't want to say enjoy it. If you can draw any inspiration from it, any inspiration whatsoever, please do. If you are somebody that supports children in care, whether you're associated with foster care, residential care, respite care, adoptive services, in schools, looking after children in schools who are in care, if you can be inspired in any way, shape or form from watching this video, then it's done its job. Then it's done some service to humanity. And I will continue to do what I do in supporting those children who are vulnerable and that struggle to find their voice. I will continue to do what I do. This is my why, this is my story, and only you can tell your story. Nine foster families, 2 children's homes, and I attended 5 schools. I'm often asked by people, what was it like to grow up in care? And it's such a loaded question for me. I usually say to people, have you got a couple of days? And they say, what do you mean? So it's going to take a couple of days to explain it, to answer that question. I mean, the best way that I describe it is a chaotic adventure. What I mean by that is my childhood was filled with chaos, coupled with adventure. I think one thing that professionals often forget with a child in care is their head is constantly being bombarded with why me, why am I here, why am I in this children's home, why did they not care enough, why did my dad have to die, why did my mum not look after me, why did my family not take me in, why do I have to keep moving schools, why do I have to start forming new attachments, why do my teachers keep telling me that I'm not concentrating, that my behaviour is not very good? Why do I struggle to form relationships? So when I was 16 years of age, I had the opportunity to go and live with Eunice and Neville's son, Chris, in Aston, in his house. And it just so happened that when I moved in, a couple of weeks later, he kind of moved out to go and stop with his girlfriend. So I've got this whole house to myself at sort of 16, 17 years of age. And I'm still doing things that I shouldn't really be doing, i.e. smoking weed, drinking, bringing your friends around and being a 16, 17-year-old, I suppose. But fast forward a couple of years, I got myself into a really sticky situation that very quickly could have ended my life. So I'd invited people around for a party, as you do, at sort of 19 years of age. And what happened was people invited people. So all of a sudden I'm looking at people in the house and I don't recognise them. But the party was going quite well. There was no issues in the beginning. I noticed these 2 girls, they were having a bit of a squabble on my doorstep, and it turned into a fight, and they're pulling each other's hair. And I wasn't overly concerned about the fight. I was more concerned that they were doing it on my doorstep. So I said, look, guys, girls, can you just do that somewhere else? Anyway, one of the girls' boyfriends comes out. What's going on? They're fighting. Why don't you let them fight? I don't care about them fighting. They're just doing it on my doorstep. Anyway, he pushes me out for whatever random reason, I don't know. And then my cousin sees it, and then he comes out, and basically everyone's fighting on the street. And because we'd been drinking, I didn't even realise that I'd been stabbed. So I just remember the feeling of wet on my neck, like a wetness, like someone had threw something
on me, like a fluid. So I put my hands on the back of my neck, and my hands are covered in blood. And then I put my hands back on top of my head, and my index finger on my right hand I was able to put inside my head. And at that point, when you feel that, you drop. Well, I dropped and I was unconscious. Long story short, the moment that I dropped, I actually thought I'd died. I thought, oh my God, I've been stabbed in my head. I'm dead. I just remember waking up with the sound of the bleeping sound in Dudley Road Hospital, which is ironically the hospital that my dad died in. And the nurse came over and she said, "You're a lucky one, you are." I said, "Why? What's happened?" And she went, "Well, you were stabbed in your head. If that had gone down any further into the bone, it would have entered your brain, and you'd either be brain dead or dead." And I was like, right, okay. And it was at that point I realised that something had to change. But it wasn't just something that had to change, it was me. It wasn't everything around me. So everything changed from that point. I moved out of Aston. I got my own little flat over in Sutton. I changed all of my friendship groups. I got a new number, new address, new job. Everything changed. And then from that point, there was just a underlying gratitude for life. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do a bit more of my life than drive a forklift truck. I wanted to go and do something with a bit more meaning and purpose, and so I became a support worker in a residential home. Did that for the best part of 10 years. I went to be a family support worker with Malachi Family Support. Personal and professional experiences, I could do something for me, but by doing that I could actually give it back to children in school, particularly looked after children or children in care. And I wanted to call it Elements, and I was in no doubt about calling it Elements. And the reason I called it Elements is because I knew it was going to be a culmination of my personal and professional experiences. But I was always fixated on those 4 elements, that in order to affect any change, I need a solid belief system, core belief system, and a set of values. I need that. But I also need a framework, and that framework was the elements of the physical health, the environmental health, the social health, and the mental health. So that's my story. That's obviously something that I've been thinking about doing for some time now, and finally plucked up the courage to do it. I hope it's given you some inspiration for your own life in any way, shape or form that you feel fit, and that it can lead you on to something else that's special and meaningful for your life. And that makes me that little bit more happier that I've been able to do that for someone else.
Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana.
Why go this far? Why try to learn this much? Why try to do it all? Why try to see it all? Why try to have it all? Why do it? Why learn it? Why study? Why put yourself out? Why try to take on this much responsibility? Why develop yourself to the full? Why try to become all that you can possibly become? Why try to earn as much as you can earn, share as much as you can share, develop every skill you possibly can, see every human you possibly can, go to every class you possibly can, touch everybody you possibly can? Why do that much? Why go that far? Why share that much? Why give that much away? Why try to see everything? Why try to do everything? Why try to become everything? That's a good question, why? And you're the only one personally that can answer that question for yourself. You've got to have your own list of whys.
Jerusalem